Welcome to Journey to Oz, the podcast where we share migration stories from overseas to Australia. We are both registered migration agents, Nick, who specialises in family visas, and myself, Evan, who specialises in employer-sponsored visas. Over the years, we've helped many clients who have very interesting stories to tell. Nick, can you give an outline of what you'll cover in today's episode?
I spoke to Tuan and Anthony, who met each other at work and became friends. They then later realised they were attracted to each other and commenced a relationship. They get pretty personal in this interview as they cover their experience of coming out of the closet as a gay couple to their families, as well as Anthony's health issues and Tuan having to return to Vietnam for around 18 months to wait for his partner visa application to be processed. Tuan first arrived in Australia as the secondary holder of a prospective marriage visa after his father was sponsored by an Australian. Tuan was then the secondary applicant on his father's partner visa application, but that didn't play out as planned. After this interview, we'll go into more details about the legalities of Tuan's situation and explain in detail why he had to return to Vietnam. But first, I asked Tuan about where he grew up.
I grew up in Vietnam, so come from Ho Chi Minh City, so the big cities in my country.
And what about yourself, Anthony? Whereabouts did you grow up?
So I'm a Tasmanian boy. So for those people in Australia don't class Tasmania that often as part of Australia. But yeah, so I'm from a little town in Tasmania called Devonport.
Okay.
Grew up there most of my life.
When did you move to Melbourne?
So I moved to Melbourne in 2015 just due to work. So where I'm from, there's not a lot of work.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's just more to move here to better my life.
And have you enjoyed it more since moving to Melbourne?
Yeah, so I'm not a person going to the big city because I'm not used to it all, but
yeah,
it's been enjoyable.
Okay, fantastic. Now, Tuan, when did you first come to Australia?
I first come to Australia on August 2015.
Okay.
With my father, yeah.
And did you know much about Australia before you came to Australia?
Not really. It's just see on website, YouTube about Australia and that one.
Okay. So your dad just sort of said, okay, we want to go to Australia and live in Australia, or was the plan just to visit initially?
So I'll jump in there.
Yeah, sure.
So Tuan's father had a partner here.
So did they arrive in Australia on a prospective marriage visa and then apply for an 820 partner visa?
Yeah. So with Tuan as an applicant, because he was under the age of 25 at the time.
Yeah.
And it turned out that she just abused the relationship just for money.
Oh, right.
So that's all she wanted out of it. So she abused it. She didn't say anything about it. And then she cancelled the visa on them.
And then what happened after she cancelled the visa?
So she didn't say she cancelled until I realized the immigration sent me the email about the visa being cancelled. That's later, like I have about 29, 30, 39 days to live out Australia.
Right. Okay. So then what did you end up doing to stay in Australia?
And then I met some lawyer to ask about it because I have no idea about what the visa I live in here. Because my stepmother, she hold the document about it. For my passport, everything.
Okay. So you went to, was it the Administrative Appeals Tribunal because of the partner visa cancellation? Is that what happened?
Yes.
Were you successful when you went to the tribunal?
No, it wasn't successful.
Okay.
So that's when the lawyers got him and his father to apply for the protection visa.
Right. And then what happened with the protection visa application after that?
So currently for his father, it's still pending.
Right. So he applied for the protection visa. How long ago was that now? How many years?
It would have been probably back around 2017-ish, 2016-ish.
Okay. So it's October 2021 now, and they still haven't made a decision on that initial protection visa application.
No, so it's still pending.
Right. Okay.
Well, as far as we know, because we're not really in contact with his father.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. So how did you guys meet each other?
So we actually met each other through work. It's a funny story. What happened was he was actually in his interview with my manager.
Okay.
And I accidentally walked in on the interview. Now, we had another Vietnamese guy at work who wasn't very switched on or anything.
Okay.
So because I was standing behind, Tuan couldn't see my reaction. So I was there standing behind saying, yeah, like, don't hire. We've already got one, yeah. But yeah, he did get the job. And my manager, just to be funny to me, he goes, okay, you're going to training.
Oh, right. Okay.
So we got to know each other through that. Obviously, we were with each other every day because I had to train him.
Yeah, right.
Then we end up staying on the same workstation, got to know each other, and then, yeah.
Okay.
One thing led to the other, and yeah.
So, Anthony, tell me, how did your relationship develop from there?
Yeah, so the relationship just over time, because I was already curious, so I hadn't come out at the time, but I just getting that feeling, yeah, like I was attracted to him. He actually surprised me because I had no idea he was like that or not.
Yeah.
And he just kissed me out of nowhere.
Right.
Which for me, that was very surprising.
Wow.
I didn't act on that at that time. I left it because obviously I had to think about it, whether I was ready to come out or not, whether that's what I wanted.
Yeah. Okay.
So then at work, it was a bit awkward because he's trying to talk to me. At that time, Tuan's English wasn't very good at all. So he has come a long way.
And when did you start living together?
So we moved in together in March 2019.
Okay.
I think it was February, March.
And what was that experience like?
It was good because we got to obviously know each other better. So at that time, we'd already been dating. We weren't fully in a relationship. We were just like dating at the time, just casual dates.
Yeah.
And then, we moved in because we ended up relocating for work. So it was actually just down the road from where Tuan's house was at the time.
Okay.
So it was just ended up being a 5-minute trip to work.
So it was a lot more convenient living at his place then.
Yeah, so pretty much I was there most of the time. And then, Tuan just asked me to move in because I was there every day pretty much during the week.
Yeah. Okay. And then how did you come about to the decision of applying for a partner visa?
We're going into pretty personal grounds at the moment, but I'm happy to go into it. So around July, I actually had I thought was just pulled a groin muscle. And what actually happened, so Tuan convinced me to go to the hospital to go and get it checked out. I was like, oh, no, it's just a pulled groin, yeah. It'll come all right.
Yeah. Typical male.
Yeah. He convinced me to go to the hospital to get it checked out. They'd done some scans and all that. Turns out there was actually a tumour there.
Oh, right.
As well, growing on the back of a bone spur.
Okay.
So for the next few months, I had test after test after test after test. Tuan was very supportive there. Me being a little bit of a bigger bloke, and Tuan being, a little bit of a smaller person.
Yeah.
He helped me with like showering, going to the toilet, everything I couldn't do because I couldn't put pressure. I couldn't stand properly. I couldn't walk properly.
Okay.
So eventually we got the results back that it was non-cancerous tumour.
Thankfully. Wow.
Thankfully. And it made me realise that how supportive he was to me. I didn't want to lose him.
Yeah.
So at that stage, because of his protection visa still pending, his visa, he couldn't work or anything. So he was going to go back to Vietnam anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
It made me realise, I don't want to lose him, how supportive he's been, how loving he's been over that period. And like I said to him, I didn't want to lose him. So let's look at me sponsoring you being my partner.
So you decided to apply for the partner visa. Now, in my experience working with same-sex couples, the partner visa application process is often the first time that they come out to their family about their sexuality. How have your family accepted your relationship?
Yeah, actually, my dad, he doesn't accept about it to now.
Okay.
But my mom, she's all right with that.
What about yourself, Anthony?
Yeah, so my family already had a feeling that I was gay. When I come out, they were like, we already knew.
Oh, right.
They weren't surprised. They were very accepting of it. So when I took Tuan down to Tasmania, my family were very welcoming to him.
That must have been really nice for you then, Tuan.
Yes, because it's the Vietnam culture.
Yeah.
So they very they don't like the person like that in my country, so they don't accept it.
Yeah, it's very common in a lot of countries. Unfortunately, we're quite fortunate in Australia that a lot of people are very open minded about it.
Yeah.
So at the time we started talking, you already had a cancellation of the temporary partner visa and the refusal of the permanent partner visa, and therefore you weren't holding a substantive visa, which meant you were subject to Section 48 of the Migration Act. Being subject to Section 48 doesn't normally prevent someone from applying for a partner visa onshore. However, in your case, because you had a partner visa refusal since the last time you had entered Australia, the migration regulations prevented you from making a valid partner visa application onshore. So the only option was to apply for an offshore partner visa. How did your father take to the news that you were withdrawing yourself from the protection visa application?
Actually, he didn't know about it yet.
Oh, really? He still doesn't know?
Yeah, so because we got the big fighting before that.
Okay.
So I'm going back to Vietnam, and maybe I'm not going back in Australia.
Yep.
Yeah, we live in separate from now. So.
Right. So he actually doesn't know that you've been withdrawn from that application.
Yeah, he doesn't accept the son like me, it's because my sex. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And Anthony, what was it like being in a long distance relationship once Tuan had returned to Vietnam?
Obviously, on any relationship, being apart is obviously very hard, and especially with Tuan having to return to Vietnam,
Yeah.
me having to be in Australia, different time zones. At that time, I was doing long hours at work just because I had to support Tuan as well. So send him money because he had no job in Vietnam.
Yeah.
It was very difficult, but we still managed to call each other every day, talk. It puts a lot of pressure on a relationship, but
yeah,
if it's true love, then you'll make it work.
Yeah. And you actually visited Tuan in Vietnam as well. What was that like?
So when he first went back to Vietnam, I went with him to meet his mother and his sister,
Okay.
which were extremely, extremely welcoming to me.
Oh, fantastic.
In Vietnam, there's a very different culture.
Yeah.
It's a big eye opener to what we have here in Australia. Overall, it was a fantastic experience, just seeing sights. And
did you spend most of the time in the Ho Chi Minh City area?
Yeah, so I went there again in July, but the first time it was mostly in Ho Chi Minh.
Okay.
But in July, I returned back there with my brother. My brother come with me.
Okay.
Tuan's family were very welcoming to him as well. That time we went around a bit down to a little beach town called Vung Tau.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
So you returned to Australia after the second trip to Vietnam, and eventually the temporary partner visa was granted in September 2020. So just to repeat, it was lodged in May 2019, granted in September 2020. So almost a year and a half. How much of a relief was it to find out that the visa had been granted?
Yeah, when I got the call that it had been granted, it was a big weight off the shoulders. I was happy that he's coming home.
Yeah.
Because now Australia is his home.
Yeah.
It was also very difficult because of the pandemic we're in, trying to get flights for him to come back home. And
were the flights expensive?
Yeah, it cost nearly $5,000 just a one-way flight.
In economy class?
So he had to, fly through business class because that was the only way he could come in. There was no economy, so...
Oh, right. Okay. So $5,000 one way in business class.
We booked through economy, but it kept getting cancelled. So then we went the other way. Got a flight from Vietnam to Singapore and then Singapore into Australia that way.
Okay.
But every flight from Vietnam direct to Australia was cancelled.
Right. Okay. It's very common, unfortunately, during COVID. So, Tuan, your visa was granted in September 2020, but when was it that you were actually able to arrive in Australia?
October. Yeah.
Okay.
Next month. Yeah. I'm trying to get the ticket straight away because I can't wait to back here.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the 2 weeks quarantine like?
That's horrible, but I'm back to Australia. I think why. I'm feeling fine. Yeah, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, fair enough. It's 2 weeks in the scheme of things isn't that much. What was it like being reunited with each other, Anthony?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Like just being able to hold him instead of just looking at a screen, looking at him that way.
Yeah.
Because March 2020, I'd actually had more flights to go back to Vietnam to surprise him for his birthday.
Oh, right. Okay.
That's when obviously the major of the pandemic, the COVID hit. It was a 2-week quarantine arriving into Vietnam as well. My whole trip would have been land into quarantine and then back on a flight back out.
And then quarantine back in Australia.
Quarantine back in Australia. I couldn't, so I didn't actually go. So it was good to have him back in my arms instead of actually looking at a phone screen.
And how have you settled back into life in Melbourne together?
So yeah, we've settled back in really well. We've actually just purchased our first house.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks. Very thankful for Tuan's mum. She actually gave us the deposit for the house.
Oh, nice.
We're actually currently setting up our business. So we've purchased a truck. So we're going to do deliveries, whether it be local or probably interstate driving.
Oh, fantastic. What sort of size truck is it?
So it's a 14 pallet Talkliner truck. Nothing big to start with. So it's pretty much just anything really. So in the industry that we currently work in, so we're working in logistics. So we have a background in it.
Yep.
That's why we decided to go that way, purchase a truck, try and build a business and better our lives.
Fantastic. That's great. And we lodged stage 2 of the partner visa application in June 2021. And the permanent visa was granted a few months later in September 2021. So just a few weeks ago. So Tuan, how does it feel to be a permanent resident of Australia?
Yeah, that's a fantastic feeling because I feel like my life will change, and then everything like fresh, and I can start everything from there. I can do whatever. I can find a job. Like I never have that feeling before.
And do you plan on applying for Australian citizenship?
Yes, of course. Yeah, I want to.
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic. Because I think we worked it out that it was going to be 4 years from the day that you returned to Australia. So it's still a couple of years away, but it's not too far away. Thanks for joining us today, guys. I really appreciate it. You've had a really interesting story, and thank you for sharing it with us.
Thank you, Nick.
No problem at all.
That was fantastic, Nick. And I really appreciate the honesty that your clients had and being able to open up to you. And I think that really speaks volumes about the relationships that you have professionally with your clients as well.
Yeah, thanks, mate. So to clarify what actually happened, Tuan's father initially came to Australia on a prospective marriage visa and then returned to Vietnam to get married, and then came back to Australia and applied for a partner visa in late 2015. Tuan was the secondary applicant. He was considered a dependent child on the application at the time. They were actually granted the temporary partner visa a few months later, but then the relationship between Tuan's father and his stepmother broke down, and the temporary partner visa was cancelled and the permanent partner visa was refused. So his father then appealed the refusal through the Administrative Appeals Tribunal, trying to claim that he was the victim of domestic violence. He appeared in the AAT in mid-2017, but then the tribunal affirmed the decision not to grant the visa. He then tried for ministerial intervention, but was unsuccessful. So then his father applied for the protection visa.
So, Nick, for the sake of the listeners, can you please explain why Tuan needed to apply for his partner visa from offshore and he couldn't apply for it while he was in Australia?
So Tuan was subject to Section 48 of the Migration Act, which basically says that if a non-citizen is in Australia and doesn't hold a substantive visa, so any visa other than a bridging visa, criminal justice or enforcement visa, and since they last entered Australia, they've had a visa refused or cancelled under certain provisions, they may only apply for certain types of visas whilst in Australia.
So what types of visas can people apply for when they are Section 48 barred?
So they can apply for a partner visa, child visa, protection visa, medical treatment visa, bridging visa, and there's a few other less common types of visas in there as well. As of the 13th of November 2021, Section 48 barred persons can also apply for certain state-nominated and regional skilled visas, which includes subclass 190, subclass 491, and subclass 494.
So if Section 48 barred persons can apply for a partner visa onshore, why did Tung have to leave Australia and apply offshore?
So to give the legal outline of why, there's a series of schedules in the migration regulations that outline certain requirements. So for example, Schedule 1 outlines the requirements for making a valid visa application. Schedule 2 outlines the actual visa requirements. And there's a whole series of other schedules which we'll run through in future episodes when it's relevant. So in Tuan's case, Schedule 1 for the permanent partner visa states that if the applicant is subject to Section 48, they cannot have had a partner visa refused since last entering Australia. This applied to Tuan even though he was the secondary applicant on his father's partner visa application. So the only option then was for him to return to Vietnam and apply for an offshore partner visa.
Okay, got you, Nick. That makes sense. And I understand you have an update from a previous episode for us as well.
Yeah, so I previously mentioned that the family sponsorship approval process may be changing in November 2021, meaning that the sponsor has to be approved before the application can be lodged. So the Department of Home Affairs have confirmed that this will not be changing yet and have not given any indication as to when it will change. There's also the possibility that when it does change, an English language requirement may be introduced for partner visas.
Yeah, very interesting, Nick, particularly because such changes are going to make it a lot tougher for partners as opposed to making it easier. Moving on from the partner visa aspect, has there been any developments regarding international students returning to Australia? And if so, what can you tell us?
So the Australian government will gradually allow international students into Australia, and it's sort of done state by state. So in December 2021, New South Wales will introduce a pilot program for international students. So the plan is to allow 250 fully vaccinated students to enter New South Wales per fortnight. This will be outside the current caps and will not affect Australian arrivals. The students will quarantine in a purpose-built facility in Sydney. So Victoria is going to allow a limited number of international students who need to do practical work, such as health, medical, and postgraduate research students. There are plans to expand this more broadly using a staged approach, more likely later into 2022. South Australia has announced that they will allow fully vaccinated international arrivals with no quarantine period once South Australia reaches 90% vaccination, which is likely to be in late December 2021. Queensland, ACT, Western Australia and Northern Territory will commence allowing students to enter early in 2022, depending on those states' vaccination rates, and Tasmania hasn't made any specific announcements as yet.
Well, we've discussed partner visas, we've discussed student visas. Please tell me we have some news regarding international travel in general.
So the New Zealand travel bubble has reopened as of the start of November, and there'll also be a travel bubble opening for Singaporean citizens on the 21st of November 2021, meaning that travellers do not need an exemption to enter Australia if they've spent more than 14 days in New Zealand or Singapore. Obviously, travellers must hold a visa for Australia. Travellers must also be fully vaccinated for COVID-19 with a TGA-approved or recognised vaccine. They must also test negative for COVID within 3 days of their scheduled flight to Australia. They will not need to quarantine if arriving in New South Wales, Victoria or the ACT. Other states, they will still need to quarantine for the time being. They must also complete a travel declaration on the Department of Home Affairs website at least 72 hours prior to departure. Otherwise, they will probably be denied boarding. So it's really important to get that travel declaration done. There's also word from the government that the Australian border will be opening in December for temporary work and skilled visa holders.
And we'll certainly cover these updates in a future episode. Thanks for listening to the Journey Towards podcast. If you have liked what you've heard, please subscribe and also leave us a review. We'll release a new episode every second Tuesday, so please stay tuned.
The Journey to Oz podcast is produced by Nick Hansen from Hansen Migration, Migration Agent Registration number 1679147, and Evan Bishop from Worldly Migration, Migration Agent Registration number 1679414. Any information discussed in this podcast is made available for entertainment purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional advice. We do not make any guarantee or accept any responsibility for the accuracy and completeness of any of the information discussed. You should obtain advice from a registered migration agent or an immigration lawyer before acting on any of the content discussed in this podcast. You can find a list of registered migration agents by visiting mara.gov.au. The information contained within this podcast may not be reproduced without our prior written consent. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of land throughout Australia and pay respects to their elders. We extend that respect to all Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islanders today. Thank you for listening.